Hi guys, AWS Lambda powers multiple cloud applications, and I am here today to help you leverage this power of AWS Lambda to build your own applications. So, this video is basically part of a series of videos where we'll basically try to learn about AWS Lambda and do a project around it. So, today's session is basically an introductory session on AWS Lambda. So let's get started on understanding what is AWS Lambda and uh, like how will it help you. So AWS Lambda is basically the serverless way of running your applications. So in a server-based environment, what you do is you provision a server where you run your application and that server runs 24/7. In a serverless way, you do the same thing, but with the added advantage that your server does not run 24/7. It just runs whenever any event or a request comes to it. So, one more advantage of the serverless pattern is basically the cloud provider manages the infrastructure for you. So, in case of AWS Lambda, which is a very highly adopted serverless way of computing, AWS is the cloud provider which manages the infrastructure for you. So now you would want to know what programming languages does it support. So it supports all the major programming languages like Java, Go, Node.js, Python, C Hash, and Ruby. But you can also add any additional programming languages of your own. So let's get started by doing a Lambda hello world in Python. So I'll quickly cast my screen in my AWS console, and there I'll try to create a Lambda function from scratch and do a sort of a hello world. So I am in my console in the Asia Pacific Mumbai region, and if you see, I have this Lambda service in my home page. But if you don't have it, basically what you can do is you can type Lambda here in the search bar and you can directly go to the service. Now, in my functions console, as you are seeing, I don't have any Lambda functions as of now. So what I'll do, I'll try to create a function from scratch, and I hope you are able to follow along. So when I try to create a function, I get three options. Either I can use it as a container image, which is an advanced topic and not in the scope of this video right now, or we can use a blueprint which AWS provides, getting started sort of blueprint, and or we can author it from scratch. So let me author it from scratch because that would give us more insights. So here it asks for the basic information. So you can have as many Lambda functions as you want, and that's where this function name helps you in identifying the different Lambda functions. So let me write it down as hello world demo. Now I'm going to show you this demo in Python environment, but please feel free to choose any runtime of your choice. Here you also get an architecture choice, like Lambda can run on x86-64 based architecture or ARM based architecture. For this demo purposes, we can just choose x86-64 and go ahead. And these are optional configurations, so let's not bother about them right now and just go ahead and create the function. So this is creating my function. It takes around 1 minute or so to create my Lambda functions. So if you see now my console is showing that it has successfully created the hello world demo. So you get a starter code as well, but what we are going to do in this tutorial is basically try to implement our code here in between this Lambda handle. So Basically, Lambda handler is sort of the uh, main function in C or C++. Basically, what that means is this is where your execution starts. Okay. So let's try to print a hello world message and see an output. So this is the Pythonic way of writing hello world, printing hello world to your screen. So I've done just that. I've printed hello world. Now I'm going to deploy this Lambda function. This is basically saving the code of the Lambda function which we have written now and then testing it. So when I test it, I need to create a new test event because this is an event driven architecture. What that basically means is like whenever request comes, it comes as a sort of an event, and at that point in time itself, Lambda gets triggered. So to test this, I need to create an event. So let me just try to create an event. So I can name this event as again test event. I can share with other developers also, or I can keep it private to myself. But right now, all these parameters does not matter because I'm not taking any input here. So I'll keep everything as default and just click on save. So this test event is now saved successfully. And when I click on invoke, so you'll see an output of hello world here. So if you see, my hello world has been printed in the Lambda console. So yeah, that's it for the demo part of it. Now, coming into what else you can do with AWS Lambda to just give you a glimpse of what we'll be doing in the next few sessions is like you can implement entire backend architectures with AWS Lambda. So many companies have their microservice architectures built on AWS Lambda. Another thing which you can do is you can customize multiple AWS services. So AWS has this various cloud services basically which basically help you to develop your applications faster. And many of those AWS services have integration with AWS Lambda so that they can run custom logic. So, and there are many more things which you can do with AWS Lambda. But why should you use AWS Lambda? So, the first thing which we are going to talk about is automatic scaling. So if you remember, during our initial discussion, I told AWS manages the AWS Lambda infrastructure for you. So basically what that means is, let's say today you have 10 customers or tomorrow you have 20 and day after you have 1,000. Okay. So all this scaling is basically managed by AWS itself in the background and you don't need to worry about it. Same way, you don't pay for a 24/7 running server because AWS Lambda only gets invoked or only runs when requests come in. With a traditional server, you need to run it 24/7 and that costs you too much. Built-in observability. So one thing is like you don't need to have your own monitoring tools with AWS Lambda. So AWS Lambda has integrations with other AWS services like AWS CloudWatch, and also it provides some metrics, again backed by AWS CloudWatch, uh, to give you a built-in observability experience. So you don't need to build the observability part or the monitoring part in your application from scratch. So that's it for this session. Let's meet in the next session to start a project on AWS Lambda. Thank you very much. If you like this video, please feel free to like and subscribe.